The security camera caught everything. My son Michael standing at my golden gate, pressing the buzzer like he owned the place. After 15 years of treating me like I was invisible, he had the nerve to show up at my door demanding a place to live. What happened next made him wish he'd never found my address. I'll tell you everything. First, let me thank you for watching Granny's Voice. Please subscribe and tell us where you're watching from in the comments. We might give you a shout out in our next video. Today's special shout out goes to Francisca Rosado from Belize City. Thank you for being part of our family. Today I'm sharing how a 65-year-old woman went from being treated like garbage to living in a $7 million mansion. And trust me, this story has a twist that nobody saw coming. My name is Dorothy Chen, but my friends call me Da. At 80 years old, I've learned that sometimes the people who hurt you the most end up being your greatest teachers. They teach you exactly who you don't want to be. Back in 2009, I thought family meant everything. I was wrong. Family means nothing if they don't treat you with respect. My son Michael and his wife Amanda made sure I learned that lesson the hard way. It started on Christmas morning when everything changed forever. I'd been living with them for 6 months after breaking my hip in a bad fall. The doctors said I needed help around the house while I healed. Michael insisted I move in with them and their twin boys, Marcus and Martin. They were only 5 years old then, and I loved taking care of them while their parents worked. I cooked their favorite meals, helped with homework, and told them bedtime stories about my childhood in China. Those boys meant the world to me. But Amanda saw things differently. She thought I was getting in her way and taking over her house. The tension had been building for weeks. That Christmas morning I was making breakfast for everyone when Amanda stormed into the kitchen. She was wearing her fancy red dress, the one Michael bought her for their anniversary. Her face was twisted with anger. "Dorothy, this isn't working anymore," she announced loudly enough for the whole house to hear. "You're confusing the boys about who their real mother is." I stopped stirring the scrambled eggs and looked at her. "I'm just helping with breakfast, dear." But she wasn't listening. She had made up her mind about something, and I was about to find out what. "Michael," she called out. "Come in here right now." My son appeared in the doorway wearing his Christmas pajamas, the ones I'd bought him the year before. He looked uncomfortable, like he knew what was coming. "Tell your mother she needs to find somewhere else to live," Amanda demanded, crossing her arms. Today, I felt the world tilt sideways. Michael, what is she talking about? But my son, the boy I'd raised alone after his father died, wouldn't look at me. "Mom, we think it would be better if you lived somewhere else," he mumbled to the floor. "On Christmas?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "You're kicking me out on Christmas morning." Amanda smiled like she'd won some kind of prize. "We already called Pine Valley Senior Living. They have an opening today. Michael can drive you over after presents." Pine Valley was the cheapest nursing home in town. The kind of place where they parked old people and forgot about them. I'd visited friends there. The smell of sadness and cleaning supplies hung in every hallway. "I don't need a nursing home," I said. "I just need time to heal." But Michael was already walking away, following his wife like a puppet on strings. 20 minutes later, my clothes were stuffed into garbage bags. Everything I owned fit in the back of Michael's truck. My photo albums, my jewelry box from Taiwan, my recipe books, all of it treated like trash. The worst part was watching Marcus and Martin wave goodbye from their bedroom window, confused about why Grandma was leaving on Christmas. I'd helped raise those boys for 6 months, and now I was disappearing from their lives forever. At least that's what Amanda thought would happen. Pine Valley was worse than I remembered. My room was barely bigger than a closet, with a tiny window that looked out at the parking lot. The other residents moved like ghosts through the hallways, and the staff treated us like we were already gone. But I refused to disappear. Every morning I'd sit in the common room and plan my escape. Not just from Pine Valley, but from the helpless feeling that had swallowed me whole. I started by calling my old friend Lucy, who worked at the community college. "They're always looking for people to teach English to new immigrants," she told me. 2 weeks later, I was standing in front of a classroom full of adults who wanted to learn English. They reminded me of myself when I'd first come to America 40 years earlier, scared, hopeful, and determined to build something better. Teaching them brought back memories of helping my own son with his homework, back when he still listened to me. The pay was small, just $20 per class, but it was a start. More importantly, it reminded me that I had skills people needed. I wasn't useless, no matter what Amanda thought. After 3 months at Pine Valley, I'd saved enough money to rent a small apartment above Chen's Bakery in Chinatown. Old Mr. Chen felt sorry for me and only charged $300 a month for the tiny space. It had 1 room, a hot plate, and a bathroom down the hall that I shared with 3 other tenants. But it was mine. Nobody could kick me out on a whim or tell me I was too old to live independently. The apartment smelled like fresh bread every morning, which made everything feel more hopeful somehow. My English classes kept growing. Word spread through the immigrant community that Mrs. Chen could help you pass the citizenship test and get better jobs. Soon I was teaching 5 classes a week at different community centers around the city. My students would bring me homemade food from their countries and stories about their families back home. They understood what it felt like to be far from the people who were supposed to love you. These strangers treated me with more kindness than my own son had. It was during one of these classes that I discovered my real talent. Maria, one of my students from El Salvador, was crying after class. Her English was perfect, but she couldn't find work because she didn't understand American business culture. "Mrs. Dorothy," she said, "I have a nursing degree from my country, but here they want me to clean toilets." That's when I realized I could do more than teach English. I could teach people how to navigate the American job market, how to write resumes, how to interview with confidence. Within a month, I'd started a small consulting business helping immigrants find professional work. The consulting business grew faster than I ever expected. My first client, Carlos, was an engineer from Mexico working as a dishwasher. After 3 sessions with me, he landed a job at a construction company. He told his friends who told their friends. Soon I had a waiting list of people who needed help transitioning to professional careers in America. I charged $50 per session, which felt like a fortune compared to my teaching income. By the end of my first year, I was making more money than I'd ever made in my life. And every success story felt like proof that starting over wasn't the end of the world. My little apartment above the bakery became an unofficial career center. Immigrants would climb those narrow stairs carrying hope and desperation in equal measure. I'd help them practice job interviews, fix their resumes, and most importantly, build their confidence. The transformation was amazing to watch. People would arrive defeated and leave believing in themselves again. Mr. Chan started calling me the miracle worker because so many people found good jobs after visiting my apartment. But I knew the real miracle was discovering that helping others helped heal my own broken heart. 2 years in, I made a decision that changed everything. Instead of just helping people find jobs, what if I helped them start their own businesses? I'd learned so much about running a small operation, and I could see that many of my clients had incredible skills that weren't being used. Rosa made the most beautiful hand-sewn clothes. Ahmed was a master carpenter. Fatima could cook restaurant-quality Middle Eastern food. They just needed someone to show them how to turn their talents into money. And I was becoming very good at exactly that. The business incubator started in my apartment living room. 5 immigrants with different skills, meeting every Wednesday night to learn about permits, taxes, marketing, and customer service. I charged each person $200 for the 8-week program. And by the end, all 5 had launched successful small businesses. Rosa opened a tailoring shop. Ahmed started a custom furniture company. Fatima launched a catering service that became the most popular Middle Eastern restaurant in town. Watching them succeed felt better than anything I'd experienced in years. These people believed in themselves because I'd believed in them first. Word spread through the immigrant community like wildfire. The lady above Chen's Bakery could help you start a real business in America. My waiting list grew to over 50 people. I realized I needed a bigger space and a more professional setup. Using my savings from consulting and teaching, I rented a small office building in the downtown area. Immigrant Success Center read the sign out front. It wasn't fancy, but it was legitimate. The mayor even showed up for the ribbon-cutting ceremony, calling me an inspiration to the community. By year 5, the success stories were adding up like compound interest. Over 200 immigrants had gone through my programs. They'd started restaurants, cleaning services, construction companies, and tech startups. Many of them were now millionaires themselves. But the real victory was watching their children grow up believing they could accomplish anything in America. These kids saw their parents build something from nothing just like I had. They knew that being thrown away by some people just meant other people would value you more. And they were right. The phone call that changed my life came on a Tuesday morning. "Mrs. Chen, this is Patricia Williams from the governor's office." I nearly dropped my coffee cup. The governor wanted to feature my work in a statewide program to help immigrant entrepreneurs. Not only that, they were offering a $3 million grant to expand the Immigrant Success Center across the entire state. I sat in my office, surrounded by photos of successful graduates, and realized I'd accidentally built something much bigger than a small business. Created a movement. The meeting with the governor was surreal. There I was, a 70-year-old woman who'd been thrown out of her family's house, sitting in the state capitol building discussing policy changes and budget allocations. "Your model is exactly what we need," the governor said, shaking my hand for the cameras. "Turning immigrants into successful business owners strengthens our entire economy." The photo made the front page of 3 newspapers. Dorothy Chen, the woman who turns dreams into businesses. My son Michael would definitely see it, and I wondered what he'd think about his discarded mother meeting with the governor. The state contract changed everything. Instead of helping dozens of people, I was now helping thousands. We opened centers in 12 cities, hired professional staff, and developed partnerships with banks and universities. My personal income jumped from thousands to hundreds of thousands per year. But the real satisfaction came from reading success stories in my daily reports. A taxi driver became a software developer. A hotel maid opened a chain of beauty salons. A factory worker created a $1 million food truck empire. Each story proved that nobody is ever truly worthless. The mansion hunting began as a practical decision. I needed office space for my expanding business operations, and the commercial real estate market was expensive. "What about a large residential property?" suggested my financial advisor, Robert Kim. "You could have offices downstairs and live upstairs. Plus, it would be a good investment." We looked at several properties before finding the perfect one. Willowbrook Estate, sitting on 15 acres in the most exclusive part of town. The same neighborhood where Michael and Amanda had always dreamed of living but could never afford. 8 bedrooms, 10 bathrooms, a ballroom, a library, and grounds that looked like something from a fairy tale. The asking price was $6.2 million. "That's quite a lot," Robert warned me. "Are you sure you want to spend this much?" I stood in the grand entryway, looking up at the crystal chandelier that probably cost more than most people make in a year. "I'm sure," I said. "Cash offer. Close in 10 days. The sellers accepted immediately. A week later, I was the owner of the most expensive house in 3 counties. Moving day was like a dream. Professional movers carefully placed my furniture throughout rooms bigger than most people's entire homes. My small apartment belongings looked tiny in the massive spaces, but I didn't care. I had money now to fill every room with beautiful things. The master bedroom alone was larger than my entire first apartment above the bakery. From the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the whole city spread out below me, including the modest neighborhood where Michael and Amanda lived in their small house with its tiny yard. The first night in my mansion, I sat on the enormous deck watching the sunset over my private lake. 15 years earlier, I'd been sleeping on a narrow bed in a nursing home, wondering if anyone would ever value me again. Now I owned more property than most businesses. The journey from throwaway grandmother to multimillionaire entrepreneur felt like something from a movie. But it was real, and I'd earned every square foot through my own hard work and determination. Tomorrow I'd start decorating my new life. Tonight I'd just enjoy being exactly where I belonged. The business kept growing beyond anything I'd imagined possible. We were now operating in 23 states, had helped over 5,000 immigrants start successful businesses, and I'd been invited to speak at conferences around the world. The scared, broken woman who'd been discarded by her own family was now advising government officials about economic policy. "Mrs. Chen, your success model is revolutionary," said Dr. Sarah Martinez from Harvard Business School. "We'd like to feature your work in our entrepreneurship program." I smiled politely, still amazed that professors wanted to study my methods. The personal transformation was just as dramatic. I'd gone from having no friends to hosting dinner parties for successful business owners from around the world. My weekly meetings with other entrepreneurs had become legendary in our community. My home office was featured in Business Weekly magazine as an example of luxury meets productivity. The scared woman who'd once begged her son not to abandon her was now too busy to worry about people who'd chosen to leave her life. Independence, I'd learned, was worth more than forced family obligations. The investment started paying off in ways I'd never expected. Real estate, technology startups, and shares in the businesses I'd helped create. My net worth had climbed past $8 million, and financial advisors were calling me for advice instead of the other way around. "You have an eye for spotting potential," my investment manager told me during our quarterly review. "Most people can't see opportunity where you see it." But I knew the secret. When you've been thrown away yourself, you learn to recognize valuable things that other people overlook. "Have you considered writing a book about your methods?" asked Jennifer Park, a literary agent who'd read about my work. "Publishers are looking for stories like yours." The idea was tempting, but I was already thinking about the next challenge. The immigrant success model had taught me that there were profitable opportunities everywhere if you knew how to help the right people. I'd started a scholarship fund for first-generation college students and was planning to open a business school specifically for people over 50 who wanted to start their own companies. The personal victories kept adding up like points on a scoreboard. The day I bought my first luxury car, a silver Mercedes that cost more than Michael's annual salary. The week I flew to Paris for a business conference and stayed an extra week just because I could. The afternoon I donated $100,000 to the nursing home where I'd once been dumped, specifically to improve conditions for residents who had nowhere else to go. Every success felt like a message to my son and daughter-in-law. You threw away someone valuable, and now everyone else gets to benefit from your mistake. "You've become a local legend," my friend Lucy told me during our monthly lunch at the country club. "Half the women in this city want to be you." I'd started keeping a journal of lessons learned, not for any book deal, but for my own satisfaction. The biggest lesson was simple. Never let other people decide what you're worth. Michael and Amanda had decided I was a burden they couldn't afford to carry. They'd discarded me without considering that maybe I had value they couldn't see. They'd been spectacularly wrong about my potential. Every successful business launch, every life changed, every barrier broken was proof that their judgment had been worthless. And the best part was I was nowhere near finished. The house hunting had been practical, but buying the Willowbrook estate was pure satisfaction. I'd found the perfect way to announce to everyone in town that Dorothy Chen was no longer someone you could ignore or discard. The Harrison family had owned that property for 60 years before selling it to developers. Those developers had spent 3 years turning it into the most magnificent private residence in the county. "The Willowbrook estate," my realtor Jennifer Walsh repeated when I expressed interest. "Dorothy, that property hasn't had a new owner in decades. It's the most prestigious address in the entire metropolitan area." It was also in Willowbrook Heights, the neighborhood where Michael and Amanda drove through on weekends, dreaming about someday living among the wealthy families they envied. The neighborhood they discussed moving to back when they thought my Social Security checks weren't enough to contribute to their household expenses. Now I was about to become their neighbor, whether they liked it or not. "Is it available?" asked simply. "Well, yes," Jennifer hesitated. "But the asking price is $6.2 million. Schedule a viewing." The estate was everything I dreamed of and more. 15,000 square feet of elegant design, with a grand staircase that belonged in a palace. The master suite had 3 fireplaces and a bathroom bigger than my first apartment. The library could hold thousands of books, and the conservatory was perfect for the exotic plants I'd started collecting. But what really convinced me was the view from the upper balcony. From the master bedroom windows, you could see the entire city spread out like a map, including the modest subdivision where Michael and Amanda lived in their small house with a chain-link fence and cracked driveway. Every morning, I could look out and see the neighborhood where the people who'd thrown me away were still struggling to pay their bills. The symbolism was perfect. The sellers want a quick closing, Jennifer explained. They've already moved to Arizona and need to sell fast. Cash offer, I said without hesitation. 5.8 million. Close in 1 week. Jennifer's jaw dropped. Dorothy, are you absolutely certain? That's an enormous purchase. I was more than certain. The Immigrant Success Center was generating enough profit to cover any expenses easily, and my investment portfolio had grown beyond my wildest expectations. But more than that, I could afford it because I'd earned every penny through my own vision, intelligence, and determination to prove my worth. The sellers accepted my offer within 3 hours. 1 week later, I stood in the marble foyer of my new home, holding the keys and marveling at how far I'd traveled from that nursing home room. The moving trucks arrived on a beautiful Saturday morning. Professional decorators had already filled the mansion with furniture worthy of the space. Persian rugs, antique furniture, artwork from galleries I'd only read about in magazines. My tiny apartment belongings from above the bakery had been donated to charity. This new life required new things, and I was happy to provide them. I spent my first evening in the garden pavilion, watching fireflies dance over my private lake while classical music played from the outdoor speakers. The peace was incredible. No neighbors complaining about noise, no landlords making rules, just silence and space and the deep satisfaction of a goal achieved. My phone buzzed with congratulations from business partners around the world. Saw the newspaper article about your new home, texted Dr. Martinez from Harvard. You deserve every beautiful moment. I smiled, typing back a simple thank you. What I didn't mention was that this was just the beginning. Some chapters end so new ones can begin. And I had a feeling the next chapter was going to be very interesting. The doorbell echoed through my mansion at exactly 10:15 a.m. on Sunday, exactly 24 hours after the real estate announcement appeared in the local newspaper. I was in my new home office, reviewing quarterly reports, when the security system alerted me to visitors at the front gate. The camera showed a silver sedan with 4 people inside. I recognized them immediately, even though 15 years had changed them considerably. Michael looked tired and older, wearing a cheap suit that had seen better days. Amanda stood beside him in discount store clothing, her face harder than I remembered. Behind them were 2 young men I barely recognized. Marcus and Martin, now 20 years old, tall and handsome but clearly uncomfortable. They probably had no idea why their parents had driven them to this expensive neighborhood on a Sunday morning. I took my time walking to the front door, my designer heels clicking on the imported Italian marble floors. 15 years of silence, and they appear the day after discovering I'm wealthy. The timing was so obvious it was almost insulting. "Hello, strangers," I said, opening the heavy oak door but leaving the screen door locked. Michael, Amanda, and 2 young men I'm supposed to know. I let my eyes travel over them slowly, taking in Amanda's nervous fidgeting and Michael's obvious discomfort. To what do I owe this surprise visit? Mom. Michael's voice was hoarse, like he hadn't used it in a while. We saw the news about your house. We wanted to come by and congratulate you. How thoughtful, I replied coolly. Congratulations delivered. Is there anything else? Amanda stepped forward with a smile so fake it could have been made of plastic. Dorothy, we know things ended badly between us, she said in a voice like honey mixed with poison. We've had time to think about our mistakes. We realize we handled the situation poorly 15 years ago. Handled the situation poorly, I repeated slowly. Is that what we're calling abandoning your mother-in-law at a nursing home on Christmas morning? Marcus shifted uncomfortably behind his parents. Grandma Dorothy, I don't really remember you, but Dad said you used to tell us amazing stories about dragons and princesses. The young man's innocent comment pierced my heart like an arrow. He was right. He didn't remember me because they'd stolen 15 years of his life from both of us. 15 years of birthdays, graduations, football games, and grandfather-grandson moments that we'd never recover. I did tell good stories, I said gently, looking at Marcus. Before I was discarded like trash. Then I turned back to his parents. Mom, please, Michael begged. Can we come inside? Can we talk properly? Talk about what exactly? Amanda's fake sweetness was starting to crack around the edges. We're family, Dorothy. Family should stick together, especially when there's enough space for everyone. There it was. The real reason for their Sunday morning visit, delivered with all the subtlety of a bulldozer. Space for everyone, I mused. How convenient that you've rediscovered your family feelings now that I live in a mansion. That's not fair, Michael protested, but his eyes were already examining what he could see of the house interior, calculating square footage and property values. We've missed you. The boys have missed having a grandmother. I actually smiled at the ridiculousness of it. Michael, sweetheart, you had me committed to a nursing home on Christmas Day. Amanda told the staff I had dementia and couldn't live independently. Now you miss me. The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. Finally Martin spoke up. Dad, what is she talking about? Why don't you ever mention Grandma Dorothy? Why don't you come inside? I said finally, stepping back from the door. Since you're so interested in family reunions. I led them through the entryway, past the crystal chandelier and curved staircase, into the living room with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake. I watched their faces as they absorbed the silk curtains, the antique furniture, and the artwork that cost more than their house. This place is unbelievable, Martin breathed, walking to the windows. Mom, look at that view. Amanda was definitely looking. I could practically hear her brain calculating property taxes and market values. It's certainly large, she said carefully. Much too big for just one person. Is it? I settled into my favorite chair, a beautiful leather wingback that I'd bought specifically for moments like this. I find I quite enjoy having room to think clearly. Michael perched on the edge of my white sofa like he was afraid to leave marks. Mom, about what happened 15 years ago. We were dealing with a lot of pressure. New house payments, job stress, 2 young children. So naturally, I finished. The solution was to dump your disabled mother at the cheapest nursing home in town. We thought you'd be happier there, Amanda said defensively. Around people your own age. Professional care. You never thought that, I replied calmly. You thought I'd be out of your way. Marcus was studying a framed photo on the side table. It showed Michael as a young boy, maybe 7 years old, helping me plant flowers in our old garden. Dad, you never told us Grandma Dorothy taught you about gardening. That was taken the summer after your grandfather died, I told him. Your father and I lived alone for 8 years. I taught him how to cook, how to do laundry, how to balance a checkbook. I looked directly at Michael. I thought that meant something. It did mean something, Michael said quietly. It means everything. That's why we're here now. No, I said firmly. You're here because you want something. The question is, will you be honest about what it is, or do we keep pretending this is about missing family connections? Amanda's patience evaporated like steam from a kettle. Fine, she snapped. Yes, we need help. Michael's construction company went bankrupt last year. We're 3 months behind on our mortgage payments. And Marcus needs money for medical school. There it is, I said calmly. Now we're having a real conversation. The thing is, Michael jumped in, shooting Amanda a warning look. We were thinking you have all this extra space and we're facing some housing challenges. You want to move in, I stated. It wasn't a question. Just temporarily, Amanda added quickly. Until we get back on our feet. Maybe a year or 2. I looked around my beautiful, peaceful living room, then back at the people who'd abandoned me the moment I became inconvenient. Let me understand this correctly. You want to move your entire family into my house because you're having money problems. We're family, Michael repeated, like it was a magic password that would unlock my generosity. Family, I mused. Is that what you called it when you had me committed to Pine Valley? When you told the staff I was too confused to make my own decisions? The silence that followed was broken only by the soft classical music playing from my sound system. Finally Martin spoke up. What happened 15 years ago? Why won't anyone explain what you're talking about? I looked at these two grandsons I'd been robbed of knowing and made a decision. Sit down, I told them. Both of you. It's time you learned the truth about your parents. Mom, don't, Michael warned. But I held up my hand. Martin, 15 years ago, your parents decided I was too much trouble to care for. Instead of helping me recover from my broken hip, they had me committed to a nursing home and told everyone I had dementia. I kept my voice steady and factual. They told the staff I was dangerous and couldn't be trusted to live independently. They sold my furniture, gave away my belongings, and visited me exactly twice in 3 years. Marcus and Martin were staring at their parents with growing horror. That's not how it happened, Amanda protested. You were becoming confused, forgetting things. We were worried about your safety. I had a broken hip, I said simply. The only thing I forgot was how cruel people could be, even people who claimed to love me. Martin looked confused and hurt. But you left us. Dad said you moved away because you didn't want to be bothered with kids anymore. I've never lived anywhere by choice except this house, I replied. Everything else was forced on me by people who decided I was worthless. I gestured around the room. Turns out their evaluation was slightly incorrect. Marcus stood up, his face red with anger. This is messed up, he said, his voice shaking. Dad, you told us Grandma Dorothy chose to cut us out of her life. You said she didn't want to see us anymore because we reminded her of being old. We never said exactly that, Michael started weakly. Yes, you did, Martin interrupted, standing up too. You made us think she abandoned us because she was selfish and didn't care about family. I felt a wave of sadness mixed with vindication. These young men had been lied to for 15 years, kept from their grandmother because their parents were too proud to admit their cruelty. There's something else you should know, I said quietly. About 2 years after the nursing home incident, your father tried to contact me. Amanda's face went pale. What? You didn't tell her? Asked Michael, genuinely surprised. How fascinating. Michael was sweating now, his cheap suit clinging to his back. Mom, please don't. He found out where I was living and sent me letters, I continued, watching Amanda's expression carefully. 3 letters over 6 months, begging me to forgive him, saying he'd made a terrible mistake. You're making this up, Amanda said, but her voice was shaking. I reached into my purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Would you like me to read the last letter he sent? It's quite touching. The letter was 2 pages long, written on notebook paper in Michael's messy handwriting. In it, he apologized for letting Amanda convince him to abandon me. He admitted that he regretted the decision every day and that he'd been having nightmares about me dying alone and forgotten. But the most revealing part was where he begged me not to contact Amanda because she still believes getting rid of you was the right decision, and I can't handle another fight about it. He chose silence over doing the right thing, I told Amanda calmly. For 15 years, he's been lying to all of you about what really happened. Amanda turned to Michael, her face a mixture of rage and betrayal. You tried to bring her back. You wrote letters behind my back. I was guilty, Michael mumbled. I felt bad about what we'd done. No, I corrected. You felt bad about getting caught by your own conscience. Marcus was crying now, his tall frame shaking with emotion. 15 years, he whispered. We lost 15 years with you because they were too proud to admit they made a mistake. But here's the thing, I said, standing up and walking to my floor-to-ceiling windows. I'm not the same woman who got abandoned 15 years ago. That woman was broken, dependent, willing to accept whatever scraps of affection people threw her way. I turned back to face them. This woman owns a business empire that spans 23 states. This woman has employees who depend on her, clients who respect her, and investments that generate more money in a month than your father made in his best year. I paused, letting that sink in. This woman doesn't need anything from anyone. The silence was thick enough to cut with a knife. Finally, Marcus spoke up, his voice barely above a whisper. So you don't want any relationship with us, even now that you know we were lied to about everything? The question broke something inside me, but I kept my face calm. I want a relationship with you and Martin, I said carefully. You two are innocent victims in this whole mess. But your parents. I looked directly at Michael and Amanda. Your parents need to earn their way back into my life, if that's even possible. Amanda stood up abruptly, her mask of politeness finally shattering completely. This is insane, she snapped. We're your family, Dorothy. You can't just pick and choose which parts of us you want in your life. Watch me, I replied without blinking. Actually, Amanda continued, her voice getting louder, you want to hold grudges? You want to punish us for something that happened 15 years ago. Fine. We'll leave. Come on, Michael. Boys, we don't need this drama. But Marcus didn't move. Neither did Martin. They remained on my expensive furniture, looking between their parents and me. Actually, Marcus said quietly, I want to stay and talk to Grandma Dorothy alone. I want to hear her side of everything. Marcus, we're leaving now, Amanda commanded. No, Marcus replied, his voice stronger now. I'm 20 years old, and I just discovered you've been lying to me my entire life about my grandmother. I want answers. Martin nodded firmly. Me too. I want to know the truth. Amanda looked like she was about to have a breakdown, but Michael put his hand on her shoulder. Maybe we should let them talk, he said quietly, though he was looking at me with something that might have been shame. Don't you dare take her side, Amanda hissed at Michael. I'm not taking anyone's side, Michael replied, but his voice was tired. I'm thinking about what's best for our sons. For just a moment, I caught a glimpse of the man who'd written those guilty letters 15 years ago. The son who'd been torn between his wife's demands and his conscience. But the moment passed quickly when Amanda grabbed his arm. Fine, she said through gritted teeth. But this isn't over, Dorothy. We'll be back. No, I said firmly. You won't be back unless you're invited. This is my property and I have excellent security. If you show up uninvited again, I'll call the police. Amanda's face cycled through several shades of purple. You can't keep us away from our children. I'm not keeping anyone from anyone, I said calmly. But I'm also not allowing you to use them as weapons against me. Marcus and Martin are welcome here whenever they want to visit. You and Michael are not welcome until you've proven you've actually changed. Proven how? Michael asked, his voice defeated. I thought about the question carefully. Start by telling your sons the complete truth about what happened 15 years ago. Not your edited version, the actual truth. Then fix your own problems without asking me for money or housing. I smiled coldly. Show me you can take care of yourselves like the adults you claim to be. And then maybe we can discuss forgiveness. Maybe. After they left, I spent 3 hours with Marcus and Martin, showing them photo albums from their father's childhood and answering every question they had about our family history. They were wonderful young men despite their parents' lies. Can we visit again next weekend? Martin asked as I walked them to their car. Every weekend if you want, I promised. I have 15 years of grandmother time to make up for. As I watched their car disappear down my long driveway, I felt something I hadn't experienced in decades. Complete and total satisfaction. Not revenge exactly, but justice. The people who'd thrown me away were now begging for help, while the woman they'd discarded was living better than they'd ever dreamed possible. I'd proven that being abandoned doesn't mean being worthless. Sometimes it just means you're finally free to discover what you're really capable of achieving. The next morning, I called Lucy to tell her about the visit. How does it feel? She asked after I'd shared the whole story. I looked out at my beautiful lake, sipped coffee from my finest china, and smiled. It feels like I'm exactly where I deserve to be, I said. Finally. Some victories are loud and obvious. This one was perfect because it was earned through dignity, hard work, and refusing to let other people define my worth. 3 weeks later, Marcus started visiting every Sunday. We'd cook together in my chef's kitchen and talk about his dreams of becoming a doctor. Martin came by after school most Fridays to use my library for studying. Watching them grow into the men I'd never gotten to help shape was the greatest gift I could have asked for. They were nothing like their parents, thank goodness. They had kindness, integrity, and respect for other people. Somehow, despite Michael and Amanda's influence, they turned out to be genuinely good human beings. Michael and Amanda tried calling several times, but I let every call go to voicemail. They tried sending flowers, cards, and even a fruit basket with a note that said, "We're sorry for everything." But sorry doesn't undo 15 years of abandonment. Sorry doesn't give back the birthdays, holidays, and milestones they stole from me and their own children. Sorry is just a word people use when they want something they can't have. The truth is, I didn't need their apologies anymore. I'd built a life so much better than anything they could offer. The final confrontation came 6 months later when Amanda showed up alone at my gate. This time she wasn't wearing designer clothes or fake smiles. She looked tired, defeated, desperate. "Dorothy, please," she said through the intercom. "Just 5 minutes. I need to talk to you." Against my better judgment, I let her in. She sat in my living room like a broken bird, nothing like the confident woman who'd once thrown me away. "We're losing the house next week," she said without preamble. "Michael's drinking again. The boys barely speak to us anymore. They spend all their time here with you." I poured myself tea and didn't offer her any. "And you think this is my problem because why exactly?" "Because you're their grandmother," Amanda said, tears starting to fall. "Because family should help family." "Should they?" Yes. Where was that philosophy 15 years ago when I needed help? She had no answer for that. "Amanda, you made your choice when you decided I was disposable. You chose your convenience over my well-being. You chose your pride over your children's relationship with their grandmother. Now you want me to rescue you from the consequences of your own decisions." I set down my teacup and looked at her directly. "Here's what's going to happen. You and Michael are going to face your problems like adults. You're going to get jobs, work hard, and rebuild your lives without my help. If you succeed, if you prove you've learned to treat people with respect, then maybe we can have a conversation about forgiveness." I stood up. "But don't expect me to save you from yourselves. I'm not that woman anymore." As Amanda left, I felt the final piece of my transformation click into place. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I was simply done with people who'd proven they couldn't value what they had until they'd lost it forever. The scared, dependent woman they'd abandoned had become someone they could never manipulate or control again. And the best part was, I'd done it all without their help, their approval, or their presence. Sometimes the greatest gift people can give you is showing you exactly who they really are. Today, Marcus is in his 3rd year of medical school, and Martin just got accepted to law school. Both of them visit regularly, and we've built the relationship that should have existed all along. They call me Grandma. Help me with technology, and bring their girlfriends over for my famous dim sum dinners. As for Michael and Amanda, they moved to a small apartment across town and rarely contact their sons. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. But that's okay. Some people are meant to be lessons, not lifelong relationships. Looking back, I realized that being thrown away was the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to discover my own strength, build my own success, and create a life based on my own values instead of other people's expectations. The mansion, the business, the wealth, those are just symbols of something more important. I learned that my worth isn't determined by how other people treat me. It's determined by how I treat myself and others. And that, my friends, is a lesson worth $8 million. Thanks for watching Granny's Voice. Subscribe for more stories of triumph. And remember, your value isn't decided by the people who walk away from you.